Hey team, welcome to another Bullpen Bulletin with Coach Hart and Building Better Baseball. Today's video, we're going to talk about the rotator cuff and why it's the most important group of muscles in baseball. We're going to talk about what the rotator cuff is, why it's important, and how to strengthen it. Remember, I'm Coach Hart. This is Building Better Baseball. This is the best place for baseball education. So let's get into the rotator cuff and learn why it's the most important group of muscles in baseball. So the first thing we're going to go over is what is the rotator cuff. So if you're a young player and you've never even heard of the rotator cuff, it's probably foreign to you and you're just wondering what it is, right? So the first thing we're going to talk about is the rotator cuff is a grouping of four small muscles in the shoulder. And you can see the picture of them here. They are located underneath of the larger muscles of the shoulder. So you have your deltoids, which are the larger muscles that you can see on your body. These rotator cuff muscles, these four muscles, lie underneath of those larger shoulder muscles. And before we get into the names of the muscles, if you're a young player or for anybody, I wouldn't really worry about the names of the muscles. I think the most important thing to learn about the rotator cuff is that it is a grouping of four muscles, and these are the four muscles that create the group. And knowing just that these four muscles make up the rotator cuff, I think that's good enough. So don't worry about the big words and the muscles and everything. Just know that these are the rotator cuff. And these names are, the first one is the supraspinatus. All right. This one, it lies on top of your scapula, and your scapula is basically your shoulder blade, right? So you can see this one here. The second one is the infraspinatus, and the infraspinatus lies on the back of your shoulder blade or your scapula, and that lies underneath of your larger back muscles, right? Then you have your subscapularis, and that is on the inside of your scapula or shoulder blade, right? And the last one is the teres minor, and you can see this last picture right here. It kind of goes from the bottom of the inside of the scapula and kind of attaches to the outside of the arm or the humerus, right? So these are the four muscles that make up the rotator cuff. So that's really good information as a baseball player. Why it's critical in baseball. So why is the rotator cuff so important in baseball? The rotator cuff is the single most important muscle group involved in throwing a baseball. That knowledge will help you going forward with how you plan your strengthening and warm-ups. So it's called the rotator cuff because it's the cuff of muscles responsible for rotating your arm in the shoulder socket. So as you can see this picture here, that is your rotator cuff in action. It is rotating it back like that. And then as you come forward to throw, the shoulder is rotating forward like this. And in order to have your shoulder rotate like that, the rotator cuff muscles are responsible for that rotation of your shoulder. And that's how you throw a baseball, right? So the rotator cuff is responsible for you throwing the baseball. So the last one is, even though the rotator cuff is part of the shoulder, many exercises don't target the rotator cuff muscle group because the larger shoulder muscles, the deltoids, take over. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the next slide. So this is why there are so many rotator cuff injuries in baseball, because players do exercises that strengthen the deltoids, but not the rotator cuff. So as you can see right here, this large muscle right here, that is your outside deltoid, right? The easy way to say it. That is your outside deltoid or your larger shoulder muscle that lies on top that you can see, right? And the rotator cuff muscles are on the inside of that. They're underneath, right? So what happens a lot is a lot of players, they take heavy weights and they do shoulder raises, right? And do all of these different exercises with the heavier weights. Those are targeting the larger deltoid muscles, and your rotator cuff muscles are not being strengthened because your deltoids are kind of taking over, right? A good analogy or something to think about in comparison is imagine if there was a tug of war, right? If we were playing tug of war and it was me and like Arnold Schwarzenegger or the Hulk or someone huge, right? They are the deltoid and I am the rotator cuff. All right. In that tug of war, the Hulk would be doing all of the work and I wouldn't have to do anything, right? That's what's happening when you are doing those shoulder exercises. The deltoids are doing all of the work, and the rotator cuff muscles, they don't have to do anything. So they don't get strengthened. And the shoulder muscles, the deltoids, they get strengthened more. And the key in baseball is, I'll say it next, is keep in mind the rotator cuff is activated more than the deltoids when throwing a baseball, right? So when you are rotating your shoulder through the throwing motion, that rotator cuff, that's the responsibility of the rotator cuff to help you throw the ball. Your deltoids are not as important as the rotator cuff is in throwing the ball. The combination is so the weakness of the rotator cuff not being worked out or strengthened, combination with the overuse of the muscle group and constantly throwing the baseball, that results in injury. That is why the rotator cuff is the most important muscle group in baseball, and that's why it's critical to learn about in baseball. So we're going to go over some warm-up exercises that you can do to strengthen your rotator cuff, all right? There are 4 warm-up exercises you can do before you throw. And these are the most simple things that you can do. There are a ton of rotator cuff exercises, but I just picked 4 for simple purposes. And these exercises, they isolate the rotator cuff and strengthen it to prepare for the throwing motion. Form is everything on these exercises. The form is what activates the rotator cuff. If you don't have the best form, then your deltoids are going to get activated and it's not going to do anything for your rotator cuff. So please make sure you pay attention to the form. If you don't have proper form, you'll activate the deltoids and not the rotator cuff, like I said. With these exercises, you could use, I think I say it here, bands are the best to use for these exercises. So as you can see the bands right here, I have one that I'm going to use for these examples. No bands, you can use your glove. So if you have your glove, you can just hold your glove and do these exercises as a little extra weight to do that, right? Or a waterlogged baseball. So I have a waterlogged baseball here, and it's perfect also to do these exercises because it just adds a little weight. If you use a lot of weight, that activates the larger muscles. That's not what we want. You don't need a lot of weight to activate the rotator cuff. So a waterlogged baseball or your glove are perfect for these warm-up exercises if you don't have any bands available. So the first one is an external rotation. So what we're going to do for these internal and external rotations are the form is you're going to keep your elbow into your body. You do not want it to be out like this. You want it to be into your body, almost like it's glued to the side of your body. You want your arm at a 90-degree angle. Your elbow is at a 90-degree angle. And what you're going to do for the external rotation is you're just going to rotate out. These are targeting the outside portion of the rotator cuff muscles, right? So we're going to rotate out. Notice how my arm is staying at a 90-degree angle and my elbow is glued to my side. I'm not coming out here like this and I'm not dripping down or anything like that. I'm staying like a statue and the only thing that's moving is my lower arm, right? So rotate out, rotate out. And that is the external rotation. The next one, internal rotation. It's the exact same form, elbow into your body like this, elbow at a 90 degrees, all right? The only thing that's moving is your lower arm like this, and you are going out, and you are internal rotation, all right? Notice how I'm not moving anything. My arm is staying glued to my side. I am at a 90-degree angle, and I'm going as far away out as I can and in to my body, to my belly button area, right? So I'm going here, internal rotation. And that really activates the inside of your rotator cuff muscle, all right? Your internal rotation. Number 3 is a forward shoulder rotation at 90 degrees. So what that means is I'm gonna turn like this. I am going to put my arm at 90 degrees, just like this. The one thing with this form is I do not want to drop here like this. I don't want to come up here like this. And I also don't want to come forward with my arm or back. All right. This is a 90-degree angle and it stays out to your side and your elbow does not move. If you want to hold your elbow, then you can, but this does not move right here. And the only thing you do is you rotate down and back up, down and back up. This is a forward shoulder rotation at 90 degrees. All right. Form is everything. This is really strengthening your rotator cuff and really warming it up, especially if you're pitching that day. And the last one is the same thing, but we're going backwards. All right. So the form is out here like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to go here and we're going to go back. Right? Here, back. All right. Back. That is the backward shoulder rotation at 90 degrees. And those are 4 exercises, really simple exercises that you could do to strengthen your rotator cuff muscles. Again, they're external and internal rotation and forward and backward shoulder rotation at 90 degrees. Do it every single time that you go out and warm up. Do it every single day. A lot of people say that should I only do my throwing arm? And I believe that you should do both. If you don't have time to do both arms, then you can just do your throwing arm. And also, if you don't have bands, you could use your glove as a little weight to go back and forth like this. You could do a waterlogged baseball. There are so many things that you could do to warm up that rotator cuff. And these are the easiest 4 exercises that you could do. So I really hope this video was really informative for you and really taught you a lot about the rotator cuff. Doing these 4 exercises and knowing what the rotator cuff is and what its job is and why it's important to baseball, that's what I wanted to help you learn today or teach you today in today's video. Don't forget to grab your free guide linked below. I have a whole bunch of them down there. I made it for you for free. And again, I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in another video real soon.